All right. Let's do this. Okay. All right, welcome back. Y'all going to do another short video about this village in the Swiss Alps named Blatten that was, over the last 5-7 days or so, was completely erased from the map. There's lots of videos about this now. The news media has finally picked it up. It seemed like they picked it up when the village went under. But this has been a drama for a while now. So what am I doing here? So I'm not I'm not really riding the wave of, oh no, this is terrible, compassion, empathy. Okay, this is climate science. So we're going to do some climate science here. And what's happening in the Swiss Alps is actually a big deal because it's the Swiss Alps and because there's so much ice there. What happened in Blatten, that's terrible. There were 300 houses, 450 people, and who knows how many dairy cows. But everybody got out. That's the long and the short of it. One person went back in because he was determined to get some work done, and he died because that's what happened. A little bit choked up this morning. So I want to show you something. We're going to talk about some climate science here. Let me make sure I have the right. There we go. And we switch to this. Right. This is this might be cell phone video. I don't know. This whole disaster was actually really well studied. The Swiss kind of knew this was coming, and more on that in a moment. I want to talk about what the Swiss knew and when they knew it, and how the people responded to that. So, this is the side of the mountain. I want you to notice that it's really dirty. This is supposed to be a glacier. You don't see much ice here. It's slushy, okay? It's permafrost is what it is. It's a mixture of gravel and ice. And the problem is that the permafrost, which should be permanently frozen, isn't. It's thawing. And so it came down. Now, as this comes down, when you've seen pictures of ice glaciers breaking in the past, it was when the glacier was near the water. And the tourists go out on their boat, and they're on their boat and they're on the water, and there's this big wall of ice, right? And the ice falls off into the water, right? And big wave, and everybody screams, yay, whatever. It slides off into the water. This is nothing like that. This is nothing like that. This is dirty, filthy. This is horrifying. This is a mountain turning to liquid, is what this is. This is a mountain turning to liquid. So I just want to run through this because I want you to think about this as we're watching this. This is about, I don't know, 15 seconds. As we're watching this, I want you to think about a mountain turning to mud. That's what's happening. Let's just watch it. And this is what the villagers have been seeing. Small amounts of ice coming down. And you can see previous falls that are covered in dirt because the ice has melted. It leaves the dirt behind. Okay, that's what those brown blobs are, is previous falls. And they see this and they're thinking, oh, this is nothing. Well, look, the entire mountain has turned to slush. And this is not a calving iceberg with a big piece of ice coming off. This is a gigantic side of the mountain that is basically mud. It's turned to mud. It's supposed to be permafrost. It's supposed to be permanently frozen. A combination of gravel, rock, and ice has been held in place for who knows hundreds of thousands of years, and it's melted. It's melted and it's coming down the mountain. Now, what happened to Blatten is that this has been going on for a week, and finally a big enough chunk of the mountain came down that it just covered the village, and that was the end of it. And remember, it's a combination of ice and stone. So this is really the mountain. This is the mountain coming down. And it's heavy, and it's mobile, it's liquid, and there's nothing you can do. You could never outrun this. They had to get out ahead of time, and fortunately they did, except for like that one guy who is always that guy, right? He's the reason we have horror movies, because of that guy. So I don't know if we have to watch the rest of this. Is it worth even going to a part of the video where they show it just keeps coming, right? It's the side of a mountain. This is not a pretty picture. This is the final coup de grace for Blatten. It was an enormous rock slide, absolutely huge, and it buried the village. So the village is down in the valley. It's up on the hillside. There are, this person is taking this cell phone video. They're standing on the deck of a house that's up on the mountainside. They were worried that they were in the wrong place at this point, and I think that they ultimately did run further uphill, because this is the side of a mountain coming down, and it doesn't stop for anything, not even another mountain. And you see this kind of thing happening all the time with rock slides. And here they're just going to show it again. This is all over the Swiss Alps. This permafrost is everywhere. And it's not permafrost anymore now. It's melting and is turning into mud. And it's just going to come down. The Swiss Alps are going to come down. And who knows what is really going to be the ultimate impact. It came down. This was the final result. You see this huge field of mud, all right? It's ice and rock. And went up the mountain on the other side. It's just huge, okay? But the critical thing to see here is that this valley had a river in it. You see these houses? They didn't get covered by the ice rock. But the river was going down through here. And they are now in a lake. The mud flow has covered the lake, and you can see this is not a little thing. This mud flow that came off the mountain, which is supposed to be permanently frozen, right? This mud flow is probably 400 feet thick. So now there's going to be a lake forming behind this mud flow. I have a draw tool. I don't have a draw tool. There's going to be a lake that forms behind this mud flow. That's going to be as deep as the top of this mud flow. And then, okay, this is all interesting. You need to understand the knock-on effects here. When this lake fills up behind this mud flow, then it goes over the top, because this is not a managed dam. It just fills up, and maybe it'll take a month, maybe it'll take 2. But it fills up behind this mud flow, which, by the way, is half ice. So it's like slush. It's like a mud pie. And so it fills up behind this slush dam, and then it either pushes it out of the way because it's so light and loose anyway, or the water goes over the top, and then it rapidly erodes the dam. Dams collapse that way. Once the water goes over the top or around the dam is actually completely undermined, because the rock and the dirt around it is not as strong as the dam itself. So this has no concrete. So this is just going to go away completely. And they've already evacuated 2 villages downstream of this spot, because they know that when this new reservoir, this artificial lake, fills up and reaches the top of this dam or comes anywhere close to it, then there's going to be a wall of water 400 feet high, because that's how high the dam is. There's going to be a wall of water 200 to 400 feet high that makes its way down this valley, this canyon, and it's going to completely eliminate those villages. Not might, not could, will. We are now in the land of will. It will do this. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this video right now, let's see, there's a picture I want to stop at. Well, they keep showing the cows, and of course we love our cows. Okay, maybe this one. Yeah, we'll just stop here. This is a flyby, and this is what's left of the village. And I don't know if this is the downstream or the upstream village, but it doesn't matter. We'll stop there. So the reason why this is important is that this is the Swiss Alps. And the Swiss Alps are supposed to be frozen. And this was supposed to be permafrost, and it has melted. It came down as a slush ball. Melted permafrost. What do you call melted permafrost? Well, it's not permafrost anymore, is it? But it's melted permafrost. It's melted permamud. Melted mud. Okay, it's mud. It came down the mountainside. And it buried this village, it stopped up, put a stopper in the river, and now we have multiple disasters coming for us here. This is going to happen all over the Swiss Alps. There's nothing special about this place. Nothing special. These people didn't know they were special. They don't think they're special. They're not in a special place. They don't have special problems. This is happening all over the Swiss Alps. And as I said in an earlier video, we'll hear about maybe 1 or 2 more of these, and then we won't hear about it ever again. Because it's not news anymore. And plus, they don't want you to know. Even the Swiss government won't want you to know. Because if you get the idea that the Swiss Alps are falling down around people's heads and destroying picturesque villages and destroying other ones downstream and all this, you won't go to Switzerland on a tour, right? So the Swiss are going to deliberately sit on this. That's not me being conspiratorial. That's in their own best financial interest. Come on, people. Your ability to learn anything about any of this stuff is rapidly eroding. Because now it's getting real. Okay, it's getting real. And this happened, and people are like, wow, what is this? Well, pretty soon the Swiss government's going to say, okay, we can't have any more of this news getting out. That'll be it. Because they don't want you to stop coming to Switzerland. And what would you do? What would you do if you're in their same position? My advice to them is a news embargo. A news embargo. Make it a federal crime. Make it a crime to take videos of these events. Make it a terrorist crime. Call it terrorism. You're terrorizing people. Make it economic terrorism if you want to. Call it fake news, and it's all economic terrorism. But they'll do whatever they have to do. Now, Europeans tend to be less that way than Americans are. But who the hell knows? They might just do it. So why am I sharing all this? Why indeed? Because these people didn't believe this was happening. And their thoughts on it, that they didn't think it was happening, are juxtaposed against a whole lot of science that we were getting out of this event before it really took off. The government, must have been the government, had set up time-lapse cameras to watch what the mountain was doing over time. And you could see that they had a time-lapse camera on the ridge of the mountain, so there was blue sky behind, and the ridge of the mountain was doing this. And you could see that there was a part of it that was just dropping like this. The whole mountain, not a piece of it falling off or the sides falling off. The entire mountain was just dropping. And that kind of thing that's unhinged for an entire mountain range to be sliding off. The impacts of these kinds of things are simply beyond human comprehension. We have never, as a species, living on Earth, seen anything like this. Because things like this were not possible until we started burning fossil fuels. We have changed the Earth so much, so profoundly, that we have now created a planet that would be unrecognized. The behavior of this planet would be unrecognizable to our predecessors. And only humans could do that. And that's what humans did. These Swiss Alps have fossil ice from the last glacial maximum. And it's going away. It's going away. Now, the government knew that there was a problem here. They had instruments. They were doing LiDAR. They were doing listening for seismic activity. They were watching the mountain ridges. They knew everything was going on. The people, oddly enough, were taken by surprise. They were taken by surprise. They had to be evacuated. There was a big evacuation. They airlifted out the cows. There was all kinds of problems. This was not a controlled demolition. I mean, it was at the very end, but it was literally at the very end. People must be sitting in their shelters now, realizing, I mean, at some point they're going to realize that they were a hair's width away from being under this. Not sitting up on a hillside watching it come down and bury their homes. They would have been in their homes. If things had gone a little bit differently and the government had been sitting on the nearby mountain watching this mountain come down, these people would have been buried in the middle of the day. They would have been in their homes. They would have been on the phone. They would have been they would have been milking the cows, whatever. And this would have come down and would have killed them. They literally got out at the last minute. The government was watching these things. I've seen the time-lapse photography. They were watching it. They knew. And these people were almost buried alive. Now, we can read a little bit into that. I think one of the things we can read into this is that the government didn't want to rock the boat. You could say, well, they really didn't know. Oh, fair enough, they didn't know. But at this point, certainly after this one, everybody knows, right? Everybody knows. After this event, everybody knows. The government was watching this. They didn't say anything. They're watching the mountain come down. They didn't say anything. Finally, 3 days before this happened yesterday, they got the people out. They airlifted the cattle out. Nobody died except that one guy who had to go back to get something done because, it's all a hoax. He's dead, so we don't have to worry about him. This got away from them. This happened so fast, and that's the takeaway that you're not going to get out of the news. In fact, the news media won't even tell you this is caused by global heating. They'll say, oh, what a terrible accident. It's just an accident. This cannot possibly happen ever again in the history of ever because this was just an accident. It's a one-off. It's a fluke. They're not going to tell you it's global heating because if you know it's global heating, then you know this is going to happen everywhere. And not only is this going to happen in the Swiss Alps, it's going to happen in the Himalayan mountains, and it's going to happen in the Italian Alps, and it's going to happen, in Austria. It's going to happen in our own Rocky Mountains here in the U.S. It's getting hot, and the ice is melting, and the permafrost is melting, and then the mountains come down because they've been held together by ice for millions of years, and now they're going to come down. And millions of years of what we call mass wasting. Mountains fall apart, rock falls happen all the time, but during this glacial period, the rock falls have been held back because they've been frozen. These mountaintops have been frozen. So now the mass wasting, which should have been happening constantly for millions of years, it's all going to happen at once. Literally, probably. It's all going to happen in a few years, which on a geologic time scales, this level of mass wasting, all happening in 3 or 4 years, is the blink of an eye. Literally a fraction of a second in geologic time. A fraction of a second. The government happened to be watching this. Will the Indian government be watching their mountainsides come down? Of course not. Will our government be watching our Rocky Mountains come down and bury freeways and bury houses? And of course not. We're gutting the National Weather Service. We're gutting the NOAA and the NA and the NASA. We're these agencies that will be looking at these things using satellite telemetry or whatever. They're not going to do it. They won't do it. They won't have satellites. They won't have money. They won't send their people out. They won't have time-lapse photography. They won't do it. And then it'll just happen. And it'll happen. And people will say, well, that just happened. No, this is a process now. This is a process of global heating. These things are now absolutely predictable. Completely predictable. And if the government of Switzerland learns anything from this, they're going to learn that global heating is proceeding so fast that they have to get people out of the way of this now. They barely saved these people. They were watching this thing. They were watching this mountain. Somebody probably got on the phone and said, listen, man, I don't like the look of this. We maybe, possibly should maybe get these people out of here. I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay. And so they did it, and probably they felt stupid because, mountains never come down, and we'll have to put all these people back, and the government's going to have to pay for it, and what are we doing? And we're overreacting, and Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And then this. And then this. Like, all at once. Because this isn't what you think it is. This isn't normal. This is global heating. All that ice on the Swiss Alps is going to melt. All that formerly permafrost is going to come down. It's going to come down just like this. The whole place is going to turn into one big mud bog over the course of the next few years. Now, I got first notified of this disaster. Well, I watch YouTube. I get my news from YouTube because it recommends things to me, so that works fine. And I'm only interested in data. I'm not interested in talking heads. Who's that stupid? Tucker Carlson, right? I don't need a talking head to interpret this crap for me. I can see what's going on. And so she was running videos about this is a disaster, this is crazy. And people in the comments were saying, this happens all the time. You're just a fearmonger. You're just trying to generate YouTube views. You're a bad person. And then, literally, the next day, this happens. People, you got to understand something. You got to understand something. And the takeaway from this disaster is not, oh my God, look at the picturesque Swiss village. They got buried under the terrible, terrible slush ball. Okay, what you take away from this, I want to run this again because I think this is kind of cool to watch. If I can find it. Oh, here we go. Okay, what you have to learn from this takeaway is that we are not in control. We don't even know what's going on. We have no clue. We are clueless. At this point, we are clueless. We are like chimps watching this happen. We're no better than chimps. Even though we have science and we have time-lapse photography and we have satellites and we have data and we have all this stuff. Really? I mean, there's maybe 4 people in the world who knew this was happening. One of them got on the fucking phone, okay? One of those 4 people got on the phone. Did that phone call needed to happen. And so we saved, 450 people. Wow. Okay, that was a really important phone call. We even saved the cattle, the dairy cows, right? How often is that going to happen? How often is someone going to be looking at the data, looking at the time-lapse photography, looking at the village, looking at the mountain, looking at the village, looking at the mountain, and picks up the phone and makes a phone call? How often is that going to happen? Well, here in the United States of America, it's never going to happen. Because if you do that, you lose your job. Now, Switzerland, they did it. Because they don't have Trumpism and MAGAism and anti-intellectualism and anti-science. They don't have those problems. They were up on that mountain, watching this mountain come down. And one of the 4 people who saw this data, got on the phone, called the Swiss government, said, hey, it's coming down. They're like, God damn. So they got out there. They even saved the dairy cattle. And 2 days later, it came down. That, boys and girls, that is how you do this shit. That is precision Swiss management right there. That's how you do it. How do Americans do it? How do the Europeans otherwise do it? How do they do it in the UK? How do they do it everywhere else in the world? Brazil? India? How do they do it? Well, you never pick up phone, call anybody. That's going to end your career. And better still, just make sure you have a grant to study the mountain. Make sure you have all the data. And then when the mountain comes down, you can say, yep, we've collected data. Boy, did we have data. And 2 people might say, well, if you had all that fucking data, why didn't you tell us what was going on? And you're going to say, well, my grant didn't include outreach. That's for the government to do. You have elected representatives to do that. I just study mountains that are falling down and killing people. I don't notify people. I just study mountains. Now, here in Switzerland, where they still have this thing we used to call morality and responsibility, that guy picked up the phone, got off. Hey, You know what? I think it's coming down. Let's get the cows out of the pastures, okay? And 2 days later. Now, you might say they should have got on the phone 2 weeks ago, and maybe so. So they did it at the last minute. But they did it. Yes, it was at the last minute, but they did it. And here in America, no one's going to do fuck all for you. You're not getting anything. You're getting nothing. You're getting less than nothing. You're getting misinformation. You'll get information. Oh yeah, you'll get information. Miss the wrong information. They're not gonna evacuate you from something like this. They're not gonna do it. Proof. I've got the receipts. Hurricane Helene came ashore the Gulf of Mexico, proceeded into the eastern U.S., and it came to park over the western portion of North Carolina. And it rained 20 inches. Now, I knew it was going to do that. I had been following severe weather channels, and they were all saying the same thing. There's a hurricane coming ashore. It's going to be loaded with moisture because it's coming off the Gulf of Mexico, which is really hot. And it's still hot to this day, by the way. That's never going to change. It's going to come ashore. It's probably going to stall and around this area, and it's going to rain 20 inches. That was basically the forecast. That was the severe weather forecast. That was the forecast. All those people in western North Carolina could have been told that. Now, let's assume that they're too busy, selling tires or cars or whatever, beer, to watch the same channels I watch. Okay, that's my job, all right? Whatever. So, but someone who knows what's happening, like someone at this Storm Prediction Center or the National Weather Service, could have got on the phone and sent out an alert to the authorities in North Carolina saying, hey, this thing's going to stall over part of your state. You probably need to do something about that. Well, guess what? They did. In fact, these messages that go out are automated. They're automated. And I don't know what the relevant authorities receive, if they receive a text message or an email or an automated phone call or what. It may be all of the above, right? But they know. And in the case of western North Carolina, there was a county that got really badly hit. And the sheriff who was supposed to be in charge, because it was rural, okay, unincorporated. The sheriff who was supposed to be in charge of getting those people out, meaning he got the message, he got the phone call. Sheriff, blah, blah, blah. This is what you have to do. And we'll put this behind us now. Sheriff, this is what you got to do. This is what's going to happen. Well, because they're not going to tell the sheriff what to do. They're going to tell the sheriff, you're going to get 20 inches of rain. It's very mountainous in your county, and we expect massive flooding, massive landslides, massive loss of infrastructure, and probably massive loss of life. So the sheriff got the message. What did he do about it? Nothing. Zero. He did nothing. He did nothing. He did exactly nothing. And I don't know. I don't live in North Carolina. I'm not going to be on those public hearings. But the people who survived that and later were on the TV being interviewed. Here you are in your FEMA tent. How do you feel? And they were all saying, we never knew this was coming. Now, they could have watched the news, and they could have got the emergency alerts, and they could have got the thing, but they didn't. And they got no emergency alerts either. The emergency management system, EMS, whatever it's called. They got nothing. I think maybe what is it we heard? I think maybe like 2 hours before the worst of it hit, they got some kind of a message. But the rest of us in the world who are paying attention, I'm one of the 1,000 people in the world who pays attention. The rest of us in the world who are paying attention, we knew 2 days ahead of time that this was coming. Just like these people in Blatten knew 2 days ahead of time that they had to get out. They knew 2 days ahead of time. They had 2 whole days to get out. And their village was abandoned for 2 whole days before this thing came down. So that's a win. That goes in the win column, people. That's what that is. And even that one guy who insisted on going back to the village and doing some work, he got killed. That's also a wind. We don't need people like that in the world. He's buried. He has a permanent tomb. Great. Thank you very much. That he's exactly where he needs to be. I know that's a cruel thing to say, but that's exactly how it needs to be. And that sheriff, I don't know if he was the one who issued the emergency alert 2 hours before these people were cut off from the world, or what he did in North Carolina. But people were saying, we didn't know. And the whole point of this diatribe, you're not going to know. You're not going to know. I'll know. I'll know what's happening to you because I pay attention. And I'm less concerned about the climate data. I'm less concerned about the parts per million in the atmosphere of carbon dioxide. I'm less concerned about how many trillions of gigajoules of fossil fuels we're consuming. And I'm less concerned about how many trillions of billions of quadrillions of tons of CO2 have been emitted into the atmosphere this year. And I'm less concerned about 1.5 degrees above baseline. And I'm less concerned about when we're going to cross 2.0 degrees C above baseline. And I don't really care about that other thing. And there's all this other data and the melting of the glaciers and the melting of the Alps even. All I care about is what the planet is doing to us now. So actually, yes, I do care about the melting of the Alps, not as an abstraction, but as a fact. I care about that now. That's all I care about. I don't need the IPCC report. I can read the IPCC report. I could write the IPCC report. I don't need it. It does me no earthly good anymore. The only thing that does you any earthly good is whatever's happening in your neighborhood. You have to stick your head out the door, take a look around, okay, and determine what your risk factors are. What are your risk factors? The Canadian boreal forest is on fire again. Oh, they're saying this is the earliest fire season they've ever had. Only until next year. Because this is all global heating. And it's getting hotter every year. And so your terrible fires in the boreal forest, which started a week ago and are now going to burn all summer until the rains come in the fall, right? Your fires in the boreal forest are coming earlier, and there's more trees that are dead every single year because of global heating, which is real, which is never going away, which only gets worse. For centuries, it gets worse. For centuries, it doesn't go away. Every ice field in the Swiss Alps is going to melt. Every square foot of permafrost in the Swiss Alps is going to melt. Everything that's being held together anywhere on the planet that's being held together by ice, and there's a lot of it, it's all going to fall on somebody's head. This cannot be stopped. Oh, you're being negative. No, I'm not being negative. I'm just exercising a little bit of physics here. It's all going to melt. It can't do anything else. It has to melt because global heating is real, and it's never going away. And if it changes at all, it only gets worse. It only changes in the bad direction. And they're not going to tell you any of this. They're not going to tell you any of it. In fact, they're going to stop collecting the data, so they don't have to even sit on the data. There's not going to be any data. There's not going to be any climate science. There's not going to be any climate scientists. There's not going to be any departments of climatology at any universities. Why do you think they're going after Harvard? Why do you think they're going after Columbia? And when they get them under their thumb, well, then they're going to go in there and they're going to gut their curriculum. Yes, I'll give you your billions in federal funding, but I'm going to cut this part, and I'm going to cut that part, and you're going to get rid of this department, and you're going to fire these researchers, and you're going to get rid of this whole school of climatology you've got going on, whatever that was about, and you just won't know. And you'll say, oh, no, he's got his tinfoil hat on. No, I don't. Because that would be my advice to them. If they came to me with a suitcase full of cash, they said, okay, Cougar, what are we supposed to do about this? If I was willing to take the money and give them the actual advice, it would be, you just have to destroy all the evidence. You can't stop it from happening. And people are going to have evidence just from their daily lives. But if you destroy all the evidence, then they don't know what hit them. They can't complain about it in advance. They can't even complain about it after the fact because they don't know what hit them. You see the importance of not knowing what hits you? You can't even complain about it in advance and afterwards. And then, if you're not issuing the warnings and issuing the alerts and issuing the evacuations, issuing the other thing, then your fingerprints are not on it. You never touched it. And when the mountain comes down and it buries the village and the cows are under the mud and the people are under the mud, well, one thing, they're all dead, so they're not complaining anymore. Are they? But let's say their next of kin comes along and complains bitterly. You can say, well, they knew what they were doing. Everybody knows that the mountains fall and the rocks and the ice and the burying alive and the poor cattle. Everybody knew that was possible. Everybody knows that's what happens when you live in these places. And they knew what they were doing and they chose to do it. And we didn't say anything about it because we give people freedom to figure out their own retarded shit. And you have no complaint to us. We're just the government. And we believe in freedom and we believe in people making their own choices and their own decisions. And if you're one of the next of kin of this village that just got buried under, 400 feet of slush, and you say, but you had a fiduciary responsibility, they're taxpayers, they're paying you to help to look after them. And you're like, no, that's not my job to look after them. They're supposed to look after themselves. Freedom! They're free to look after themselves. They're free to move. They're free to change their outlook on life. And they're free to be buried alive under 400 feet of garbage. Yeah. They don't owe you anything. And they're getting out of the business. They are getting out of the business. The boreal forest in Canada is doomed. The boreal forest in Canada is as doomed as the permafrost in the Alps is doomed. Doomed. Straight up finished. Not going to last. Not going to make it. Probably not going to make it out of this decade. The permafrost in the Swiss Alps probably won't make it out of this decade. And by the end of the century, I can't even guess. And the boreal forest in Canada is in exactly the same spot. It's all going to burn. Every stick of it. Every tree in the Canadian boreal forest will burn. It'll take 10 years, right? It'll take 10 years, but it's all going to burn. And all those people will have to be evacuated, and they'll all be sent someplace else, and there'll all be all these refugees, and they're not going to be welcome where they're sent. And, of course, you have to keep them in Canada. You can't send them to the U.S. because, whatever. And then at some point, let's just call a spade, all right? At some point, the U.S. just invades Canada because they're done. So it's probably better for the U.S. to invade Canada and take the place over than to let the Russians come in from the other direction or the Chinese from their direction. The U.S. will just walk in and the place will be full of refugees. And probably half the refugees are at the U.S. border trying to get in anyway because the place is on fucking fire, for fuck's sake. So they're trying to get into the U.S. and the U.S. just says, yeah, okay, fine. Fine, if we have to take you over, then we will. Fine. Yeah, that's how this shit works. This is how this shit works, you motherfuckers. You think I'm full of it? You think I'm just yanking your chain? No, I am not yanking your chain. That is how this works. That is how this works. And will the Swiss be quietly evacuating all their cute little alpine villages and airlifting out the cows? Maybe they will. And maybe they'll just stop doing that. Maybe they'll do that a couple of times and then they'll just stop doing that. Who knows what the Swiss are going to do for the Swiss people? Because if you evacuate them, now you got your fingerprints on those people. And they need jobs, and they need money, and they need cows, and they need a milking barn, except they can't be in the dairy business anymore because they don't have land. So they have to kill the cows or give them away. And then they have another problem, and all these people are refugees, and they're all resentful. Maybe you don't evacuate the villages. Maybe you just don't do it. Maybe you do it 1, 2, 3 times. You realize these people are really mad at us. Don't know why. I mean, it was the mountain did the thing. They're blaming us for it. Why? Okay, so we just stopped doing that. We just stopped saving people. Why not? That might be my actual advice to the Swiss authorities. Get your fingerprints off of this. Just let it happen. Tell the people you're living in a dangerous area. Send out an email, right? Send out an email. Send a representative to Blatten a week before the whole mountain comes down on top of them. Send a representative out to Blatten and tell them, this is a dangerous place, folks. Hand out some brochures. Make no mention of global heating, of course. Just, mountain wasting, blah, blah, blah. Snow melt, blah, blah, blah. Send out some things. Take a good look at the mountain. Yeah. Okay, I'm going home. And then you leave. That's what you do for Blatten in the future. Just make sure you hand out some handouts and talk to the dairymen and recommend that they do something. Watch the mountain closely would be a good idea. And then you leave. That would be my advice to the Swiss authorities. Cover your ass and keep your fingerprints off of climate change. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Does that make me an evil SOB? I understand what we're up against. There's no way out. There's no way out. There's no way out. Most of humanity is going to die. Most of that from the heat. But also being buried alive. Or drowned. Or starved. I know that. It's not going to be any surprise to me. Just like that person saw the mountain coming down, got on the phone, called the Swiss authorities. Excuse me, we need to get these people out of here. And they got the people out of there. Okay, he knew. Yeah, that's coming down. Village, mountain, village. Okay, time to call somebody. They got him out. It was predictable, completely predictable. Nothing about that was unpredictable. And I'm telling you, because it's predictable, that most of humanity is going to die. Then I should get on the phone and call the president. Mr. President. He doesn't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. Nothing you can say, nothing you can do. They just don't want to hear it. And everybody's very busy making sure their fingerprints are not on any part of this. Well, here I am on YouTube. Most of humanity is going to die. Most of them are going to die, mostly in heat. Some of them flood, and a good part of them will starve to death. Because all of it, 100% of it, predictably due to global heating. There you go. Read them and wait, people. That's the lesson of Blatten. That it's here. It's coming. It's falling on your head. And maybe your story will be slightly different than theirs. Maybe you don't live in the Alps. Maybe you don't live in a valley. Maybe you don't have a mountain hanging over your head. But you got something hanging over your head. And yeah, this is going to be ugly. So, hey, I got other things to do today, and so do you. So let's do that. I'll come back later, maybe tonight, read another episode out of my novel about the end of the human world. An interesting story. And if you like that kind of thing, then you may want to subscribe and or at least be paying attention to your feed, because I'll probably put that up tonight. Don't know how much I'm going to read of it, and eventually it will be posted on Amazon Publishing. So there you go. Like the video, subscribe, do the things, and we'll be seeing you later.